to episode 3 of Deena and Javen at the Regent Street. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Welcome. Happy St. Patrick's Day. We're happy to be here. It's March. Busy, busy March for us.
It is. It's so overwhelming. And it's my birthday month, and it's my son Charlie's birthday month. Not that that makes it any busier. I just always like to mention that it's my birthday. I'm now accepting gifts, unicorns, chocolate, burritos. So
She's very serious about this. So
yeah.
Maybe we'll put some info where you can send her stuff at the end of the show today.
P.O. box. Yeah, we should.
That'd be great. Let's talk about episode 2. How did that go? Valentine's theme, red. We were wearing red.
Well, first of all, we looked great in red. Red is definitely our color. It was brilliant. I don't know if we can ever top it. We might just need to quit now because it was so charming, so entertaining.
Yeah, there was a moment that was magical, truly magical, where Deena, if you go watch this because it will amaze you. Deena was doing some dramatic thing where she had her notes in front of her and she threw them up in the air and said, "I quit, I think." Yeah.
All right, you know what? I do that once every episode. Like I say, I quit at least once an episode.
She actually quits before we shoot every time. So she throws the paper up in the air, and it just goes and lands in her lap. It's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. I just watched it over and over and over. Yeah. And then I was like Googling Deena Manzanares to see what her tricks are.
Not to be found. Very tight-lipped. I was really going for dramatic effect. I think I was talking about how my mom still hadn't watched our episode, and so I was all, upset about it, threw it up. I wanted it to go flying through the air, and all it did was spiral down and land right on my lap. But you know what? I kind of like it. It looks intentional, magical.
It was artistic. It was beautiful.
Thank you. What did you think about episode 2 overall?
I thought that we had a lot of fun. And I hope that translated into to people watching and having a lot of fun.
I hope they're also getting our sense of humor.
I know. Because Deena doesn't always get mine.
True story.
That silence is awesome. Okay, we are excited to be with you today. We have wonderful things happening on the show today.
The bows. Let's talk about the bows.
Yeah, so perhaps some of you saw on Instagram that we had a bow off. We were at auditions for one of the Sting and Honey shows. And after the auditions were done, we were talking about things, and somehow the night got a little crazy.
Yeah, how did this even come up? I don't even know why we did this. Do you remember?
I don't know what led to what. All I know is that we were a little wired. And before
all
we
that
knew
sparkling water we were chugging.
That's well, and the Diet Coke. Again, the Diet Coke, right? And before we knew it, we found ourselves in a classic Western bow-off. And we were vying for the role of greatest bow.
Yeah.
Now, Deena and I are both known for the care we take with our bows.
That's how it started. I think some people were saying that. And we were like, oh, well, wow, thank you.
I mean, people reach out to me about my bow often.
So after every performance, right? You get at least several letters.
So many.
Yeah.
So many. I mean, I actually teach a course. Anyway, so we tied. We
whoa.
And we tied.
Okay, but hold on, you're skipping a lot.
I'm not.
So we bowed, then we put the poll on Insta. We were keeping a close eye on votes for those, 24 hours?
We were messaging back and forth.
It was anybody's
win.
Yeah. Yes. And what we learned, though, about you and your students, they are loyal.
Well,
so loyal to you. But I feel like, hey, I've gotten to be friends with some of them in some shows, and vote for me. And they were like, Javen. So you were in the lead for so long. I was like, I don't stand a chance. And I don't know how it happened, but we came out tied.
We tied. Well, Deena has a lot of followers. People know who Deena is. So with her followers and then my loyal students, we came out in a tie. But we want to break the tie.
And you are going to help us do that. So we're going to recreate our bow,
Yeah.
and then you're going to have to choose a winner because there can only be one. We don't want to share the spotlight.
Yeah.
Okay?
Never. We share the stage occasionally. We're going to be sharing the stage twice this year, which is so much fun to think about, but also a little problematic because, speaking of Lindsay Lohan,
We'll be bowing.
so we're going to recreate our bow off, and we want you to weigh in on who does the better bow.
Okay,
So
let's do it.
let's do this now.
How many takes was that? Do we want to tell them, or should we just let that be a mystery?
Let's just let that one float in the ether. But it was emotional. I'm still recovering.
Yeah, I'm kind of out of breath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's and we don't want to. We like this show to be fun, and I know that might have been emotional for some of you.
But pull it together,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
Stay tuned.
Bows are beautiful.
Let's do this because we're cold and we're hungry.
Cold and hungry. It's freezing in here today, so we're
Yeah.
going to get right on to our next segment. Okay, so today we want to talk a bit about visual arts. Visual arts is something that we both love. We want to bring a lot of different kinds of artists onto the show. So we thought we'd start today by talking about some of the best films that we've seen recently, because we've seen some amazing ones. And so we want to talk a bit about that. And then our guest today, Bernard Myers, is a wonderful abstract photographer, visual artist, and we are excited to talk to him. So, Deena, let's start by talking about some of the films that we've seen. What, in your world, is the big film that has recently come out?
The one I saw with you, Jojo Rabbit.
Sheesh, that was intense.
What am I going to do?
No idea.
Got it!
Life-changing, one of the most perfect movies that I've ever seen. And I don't even know how to describe it and do it justice, because when somebody's like, what is it about? My family hasn't seen it, and I've been like, just see it, just see it. It's perfect as far as how tragic, but how funny. But that's so simple, I can't even begin to describe what I mean when I even say those words.
Yeah. He's one of my favorite directors. He also did Hunt for the Wilder People, and then Jojo Rabbit is just on a whole new level, I think. And what you said is exactly it for me. We often hear people talk about smart comedy, and I am not a fan of that. What I'm a fan of is artists who understand the mixture of silliness, and I mean silliness, with intense, deep tragedy.
Yes.
And that's what happens here, right? So Shakespeare, people don't understand a lot. A lot of people are uncomfortable with how silly some of the scenes in Merchant of Venice are, for example, or Measure for Measure, right? These plays that seem to have these very serious themes have scenes that are very silly. Chekhov, right? We're doing some Chekhov this fall. Chekhov mixes silliness with some of the deepest, hardest human things. And then, of course, Beckett. Just if you saw Colleen Baum, for example, in Happy Days, we're mixing silliness with tragedy. And that's what happens in Jojo Rabbit. You get silliness. And by the end of that film, you are just crushed in a beautiful way.
Well, I remember when we saw it, you were like, I saw it, and then I went right back the next day, and so I had high hopes, and it was one of those where it delivered and then some. And then I was the same way. I was like, well, I'm going back the next weekend,
Yeah.
and yeah, there was a moment in it, again, not to give anything away, but I feel like, oh, that's gonna stay with me forever. That will haunt me forever. And when that moment happens, I gasped out loud and I hit you. I was like, it's a lot. I feel like you kind of have to be in the right frame of mind to watch it and take it in. Just be prepared for an intense, visceral experience.
Yeah, it is devastatingly beautiful. That's how I would describe it. It's just wonderful. What else? What else?
I think the next movie I saw after that was 1917, and you saw that too.
Yeah.
What did you think?
I loved it. A very different film than Jojo Rabbit. I just thought it did such a great job of using visuals to tell a story. It was all about the visual, and there's not a lot of dialogue in the whole thing, but by the end, you have gone on this incredible journey of this soldier, and it's just beautiful, beautifully shot, very emotional. It just delivers the way a great piece of art delivers.
In your own time, gentlemen.
Must be something big if the channel's here.
Really surprised to see how there was not much of a script. There were stretches where nobody is saying anything, and how in the end, how simple the story is, but also how beautiful that was in its simplicity. And yeah, visually unbelievable. I've read different things on how that was shot and how many takes that may or may not have been, but man, it looks like it's about 2 or 3 complete takes.
Right. Yeah, it feels, and what you said is so true. It's so simple. It is a soldier trying to get from point A to point B. Like, that's the story. But the visual story is so emotional, so harrowing, so beautiful. It makes you think about war I don't want to say think about war in ways. It makes you feel about war in ways that maybe other war movies don't.
Yeah, agreed.
Wonderful, wonderful film. So one of my favorites that has come out recently is The Lighthouse.
What's a timberman want with being a wiki?
Just looking to earn a living, just like any man. Starting new.
I still have to watch this. I started it and then I got distracted and never went back and finished it, so I have to sit down and do it justice from beginning to end. How would you describe it?
So again, very different from Jojo Rabbit, very different from 1917, but another incredibly shot film. The pictures are disturbing. It's a very disturbing film. That's how I would describe it. It's very disturbing. It is 2 men on an island lighthouse, right? I mean, that's what it is. And it is mythological. It's beautiful, but it is not for the faint of heart. It is a disturbing sort of inner human struggle. And I loved it. One of the most beautifully shot films I've ever seen.
Wow. How would you describe the performances? It's Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson. What an interesting pair.
I thought they were both great. And Willem Dafoe in particular is so incredible in that film. And there's a moment that is so, for an actor, that is so beautiful, where he launches into this monologue that is nearly Shakespearean in its weight and power. It's that kind of a monologue. It feels like it's written in verse, and he's so powerful in it. But it is so hilarious how he gets there. The thing that pushes him into that big moment.
Oh, I'm so curious.
Hilarious. Just the simple little thing, but it's so true to life. The things that tip us over the edge are often these things that are so trivial.
Yes. Because the real stuff's bubbling underneath.
Yeah. And Willem Dafoe is, he's a master, and he's masterful in this film.
Tell me about Emma. You saw this. I'm dying to see it.
Yes, I love Jane Austen, and of course, up until now, I would say that my favorite Jane Austen film adaptation was, the Emma Thompson, Ang Lee film of Sense and Sensibility, which is just beautiful.
So beautiful, and I haven't seen it in a few years, but I've seen it multiple times, and I always cry at the end.
Yeah, it's incredible. This Emma is very different. It's quirky, but I am so excited about this director because she tells the story with the pictures. It's a real film adaptation. It's quirky and funny, hilarious. But she is focused more on making a film, and I think she does a great job with it. The pictures are incredible. They tell the story. The acting and writing are great. And then here's the thing, you get to the end and it delivers that emotional punch. It delivers on it. And so I thought it was wonderful. I thought, Emma, wonderful, go see it.
Should we bring out our guest? What do you think?
Yes, so again, we're talking about visual arts today, and so we have invited on the wonderful Bernard Myers, abstract visual photographer. And we're going to talk to him today. We're going to show you some of his work while we're talking to him. Okay, we are here with my colleague Bernard Myers, who is a photographer, an abstract art photographer. We are delighted to have you on the show today, Bernie. So first of all, let's just start. Tell us a little bit about your background, where you come from, and how you got here.
My background is a bit varied. Undergraduate degree in photography, but a graduate degree in traditional printmaking, which is stone lithography and etching, so sort of the original printing processes. And that's my work certainly encompasses aesthetics from all of that. I came to Utah 10 years ago for a teaching job at the Waterford School, thinking I would be here for a year, and it's been 10 years.
Why did you stay? What was it about Utah?
I lived in Maine for 30 years, taught adjunct at a couple of universities, and did commercial photography, and did as much of my own artwork as I could. But coming to Utah meant that I didn't have to do commercial work anymore. So I could teach and do my art, and that has turned into a magnificent combination.
And that is one of the things that keeps you at a place like Waterford, is that they value you as an artist as well as a teacher.
Yeah, Nancy Houston, who founded Waterford, has always, she staffed the art department with working artists, and as not necessarily art educators, and I think that's people with MFAs, and I think that's a big difference.
Yeah, I do too. So how did you get out here? How'd that happen?
It was the sort of the height of the Great Recession, and my commercial work had slowed down, and my kids were living in 3 different states, and Nancy kept calling and offering me the job, and I said no a couple times, and finally she said, well, at least come out and take a look at it. So I did that, and it just seemed like it was the right time to make a big change.
Great.
You know.
Now, well, first of all, thank you for being our first visual artist on the show. I think
You're
this
welcome.
is such an exciting, different area to talk about. So different than what I feel like I do, which is performing. Once it's done, it's done. I don't get to keep it or capture it, but you are all about, getting a product to have forever and see it evolve over the years. One thing I thought was so incredible when Javen was telling me about you and your art, this is taken from one photograph, right? You'll do one photograph and then change the perception of that to make something entirely new.
Exactly. Yeah, I just start with one digital file and take it into Photoshop and throw my different moves on it and kind of see what comes up. And sometimes they come up in 20 minutes, sometimes it's a couple of hours, sometimes I have to pin them up on the wall and live with them for a few days.
When you take the initial photograph, are you already seeing how you're going to rearrange, or does it just come to you in the moment as you're working?
No, it's almost like taking a photograph has become a misnomer, because I'm really out gathering material with the camera. So for the abstract work, I'm looking for blocks of color, architectural line. Of course, all that time, you always want great light, and once in a while, I can introduce some moment into them if there's people. But where it starts is nowhere near where it ends up. And I've been working on this process for about 6 years now, and just I'm still thrilled with it. You know, to me, the most important thing in making a piece of art is I need to be surprised. I want to see something I haven't seen before. And so when I started this project, I took a hard look at the software, and then we had new high megapixel capture, and I said, what can I do with this that hasn't been done before? So I think I'm doing that.
What a cool examination in evolution and perception.
Well, yeah, especially, you know, from printing on stones, which was the very first printing process. I've just always loved the fine print. To me, that's the jewel. That's what it's all about. When I got out of graduate school, I actually started a fine art printing business where we specialized in Cibachrome, which was a Swiss-made photographic paper that you could print directly from slides or transparencies, and it was super rich in color, and they were archival, they were permanent. It was the only product at that time. So, long story short, I approached all my heroes, all the great photographers that I had followed. I went to them, I said, let me make a couple prints for you, and I ended up printing shows for a lot of great people all over the world, actually. It was a good business. I kind of think of it as postgraduate work. You know, I did it for 8 years, but it just we're constantly growing. It was one of those 60, 70, 80-hour week type things. And so I sold it, but it was a great experience. And fortunately, you know, those Cibachrome prints that were so permanent, I was at the APAD show in New York last year, and a wonderful Magnum photographer, Alex Webb, there on the wall were some of the Cibachrome prints that I'd made for him, and they hadn't changed a bit. So I'm sorry. Yep.
No, I just wanted to go back to something you said about being surprised. That really resonates with me. That is an idea that I teach my students as well. Like, I teach them that what an artist should always do is be surprised by their work. Tell me more about that from your perspective. I just think that's such a great idea.
To me, that's the essence of it. I mean, yes, the print is this beautiful object, but in terms of the process of working, not only when I'm out wandering looking for things, but when I'm in front of the computer, you know, I just keep shuffling the deck, I keep experimenting. I want to see something new, and that's the surprise for me. It's just really important. I mean, the photographers that I admired the most when I was younger were the photographers that even in reality could find really abstract form. And so that when you looked at something, you weren't quite sure what it was, you were intrigued. And that's what I hope I try to bring to my work.
And I guess it's about lifting limitations, right? Not having a preconceived idea of how this has to go, which is a great lesson for life as well as art.
Yeah, I mean, it's... I refer to myself as a blue-collar artist because I just keep working and working and working at it. And I'm always experimenting, so I'm never quite sure what's going to come up. But when you've created a body of work over a period of time, then you start to see the commonalities. So even though it might not be a totally conscious effort, there's pieces inside that will make things gel.
We were wondering what it's like for you with the local scene, the local artist scene here in Salt Lake.
A few years ago, I had the first one-man show at the Alice Gallery, which is part of the Utah Museum group. And that was great. It was nice to have that. I've been in they do an biannual show at the Rio Gallery, sort of a submission basis. I've been in that a few times. I've, not Salt Lake, but I've been in the Springville Salon a few times. I'm really concentrating on outside of Salt Lake, to be honest with you. I mean, I like seeing what's going on in town, but mostly I'm pursuing, I have a gallery in New York, And every year I go to APAD. APAD is the biggest, largest photo art fair in the world, and it's the first weekend in April, and it's international photo dealers from all over the world come into Pier 94. And that's a really wonderful experience. I've had work in that for the last 6 years. I love Salt Lake. There's, it's a tremendous amount of going on, but I'm sort of a insular person, so if I'm not working on my art, I'm usually working in my gardens. And
one more thing about your actual pieces that I'd like to touch on. You've got this series that deals with architecture, these beautiful prints with architecture, and then there's another thing that you're doing, which is a study of color. Mm-hmm. So tell me about pulling the color from the photographs and how, what do you mean when you talk about a study of color?
Well, that would go back to color field studies. Rothko really, I think, was sort of the king of that, if there's such a thing. And I've always loved his work. When I was in graduate school, we studied Albers, which is all about color relationships. And so I just try to bring all of that into what I'm doing. I mean, I really believe as an artist, I'm sort of the sum of all the different people I've seen or people that have had an effect on me. And, it's my job to sort of make it add up to something.
I love that. That is so beautiful, what you just said. There's still so much more we would love to talk to you about, but we have to say goodbye. Where can people find your work, learn more, and follow you?
2 places. It's on bernardcmyers.com. And then also on Instagram, it's Myers_Bernard. And thanks. A treat to be here. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's been great to have you.
Thank you. I am so excited for this never-before-attempted segment called Deal Breakers, or theatrical deal breakers. Javen doesn't really know what to expect or what this is, so I've come up with 3 scenarios for you. We'll just go one by one, we'll discuss it, and then you tell me if, you would accept this project, if you would still say yes under these circumstances. Oh, these are so good.
I'm excited.
Okay, all right. So your first one is, you have been cast in your dream play, whatever that is. It is your dream show. It is on Broadway, okay? You are so excited. You're so thrilled. This is everything you've ever wanted, but your love interest is played by Lindsay Lohan. Okay, she has an emotional breakdown every night before the show, and you are the only one who can console her, and it takes like 45 minutes every time. Do you still say yes and take this job?
Yes, I think.
That was so easy.
I think I do.
Wait, why yes so fast?
I care. If I were in it, it might be different, right? But I care about doing a play so much, and if I were on Broadway, look, I'm a little old school. I feel like I feel like that the theater is not there to take care of the actors, right? But I also feel I am somebody who went up through grad school and was in New York, pounding the pavement and all that kind of stuff. And if I were on Broadway in my favorite show ever, in my dream role, I would console Lindsay Lohan. I mean, if they put it in the contract, they were like console Lindsay Lohan for 45 minutes every night. I'd be like, okay, and I would do it.
Wow. So you could mentally and emotionally handle it before the show every night. Every night.
I could totally. I mean, look, I'm not a wilting flower. I can handle it. Look, I had to remember who Lindsay Lohan was there for a moment, but
hot mess.
Red hair.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Was not a hot mess, then became a hot mess. I actually don't even know if she is or not at the moment, but for the sake of the story, total hot mess.
Lindsay.
If you're watching.
If you're watching, 45 minutes every night, no problem. No problem. Let's do a show.
This was too easy. Let me give you one little tweak. Okay, it's 2 hours of consoling her, talking her off the ledge every night, and the play is cats.
It's cats. I'm a whore. So
So it's a yes. These are all going to
Have you
be
seen
yes.
Bullets Over Broadway?
I actually have
where
not.
he's like, you know, he the mafia makes him cast their wife, right? And she's this terrible actress, and he's like, okay, you know, I'll do it. I'll do it. If you will produce my play, I will do it. And that's kind of how I feel. I shouldn't feel that way, but.
Well, let's keep going. Let's see. I have 2 more for you. Okay. So Friends, the hit series Friends, is having a reboot, which they really are.
Okay.
You get cast as the, how many friends are there? 6? You are the 7th friend. Okay, well, hold on. So it's obviously going to be a hit. It's going to rake in a lot of money. You're going to get those dollar bills, yo. So, but your character, you, Javen Tanner, you have to gain 100 pounds.
Oh.
And your character has severe acne, so you are in the makeup trailer every morning for a couple of hours, like getting that applied, and your character also suffers from severe flatulence. So this is what you will be known as to the world.
So my
Do you accept?
My character's not dating Jennifer Aniston.
Maybe, could be, but just in spite.
So it's 100 pounds, right? And acne and flatulence.
Yeah, and you're like, can't you just put me in a suit? But they're like, no, if Christian Bale can do it, Javen can do it.
Yeah, well, that goes without saying.
I'm crying.
Yes. I would do it. I would be part of a legendary franchise.
That's the 7th friend.
I would make history.
I'm crying.
I would make history. I would be that person who came in and they would only remember me. They would only remember me.
Okay, well, here's the last one, and it's going to be a yes, because apparently Javen will do anything. So you're in, a play, again.
Okay.
It's a dream cast, like A-listers, celebrities, dream cast. It's going to be a great experience, for the most part, but it's full of animals and kids, and you are the only animal and child wrangler.
Oh, this one is harder for me.
Really? I felt like that would be possibly the easiest, like the simplest, but we might have tripped you up.
Yeah, well, I have learned that, so I was very spoiled. I have 2 kids, right? River and Rain. And they were obnoxiously easy children. And so I've learned that I was kind of spoiled that way. And I have shared the stage with children, like, you know, at Old Globe, and sometimes that gets to be a bit much. So explain that again.
There's kids and animals. Let's say there's 5 kids, ages 3 to 6, and there are 4 goats, 2 dogs, and 1 rooster and 2 cats.
Okay.
I don't know what show this is.
The cats would be very difficult. I'm very allergic to cats.
They give you some allergy meds. They're like, here you go, you'll be fine.
And it's Dreamcast.
Dreamcast.
Wait, it's a Dreamcast, but I'm the Wrangler?
Yeah.
I'm in the show then.
Yeah.
But I'm also the Wrangler.
Yeah. Yeah, you're in the show. You're having a great experience, except for your job, just you, also includes the child and animal wrangler.
Yeah, well, this is what I do.
And they're not going to help you. Like, no one's going to help you. It's you.
No one ever helps me. No one ever helps me. Yes!
I quit.
I would do that because, you know, my dad grew up on a ranch, so I feel like that's in me, right? Yes.
You'd nail it.
I would do it.
All right, well,
and nobody
easy.
would know. See, The thing that would be important is the show. And I come from that sort of era where it's like, nothing matters except the show, you know what I mean?
So you could chase those goats and those toddlers and then acting.
Also, doing a show with a goat, I think, is something that I want to do before I die. Because the word tragedy means goat song, and I just feel like that is something that I've always wanted to do.
You heard it here first. There you go. I got nothing. I'm done.
All right, next time, join us for a similar segment where I will stump her. She'll say no to all three. Because she's soft. Earlier this month, Deena and I both shared some thoughts on Instagram, and we wanted to kind of talk a little bit about those today. So I'm going to start. I had just finished the auditions for The Seagull. And that turned out to be a very interesting process. It was difficult for me. The play is so meaningful to me, and it's close to home for me as an artist. And so I had invited actors to show up with a prepared monologue from any Chekhov play or something similar in style. And most of the actors showed up with a Chekhov monologue. And it turned out that was maybe not the best idea for me, because I'm sitting here listening to these monologues that I know so well, and just the words, the things that they're saying are just tearing me up. And so those poor actors are up there, and I'm giving them adjustments, and I'm tearing up just a little bit, and I'm sure that they were like, what is wrong with this guy? Chekhov kind of does things to me. And you know, the whole experience finished, and it was very emotional to go through the initial auditions and then the callbacks and to work with this material. And then, you know, afterwards I was thinking about just what actors do. That they get up there and, you know, they don't know how things are going to go. There are so many things in casting that are beyond your control. You know, you might be excellent, and I need somebody who is this height or looks like this or whatever. I mean, there's so many different things, but we get up there as actors and we give it all in that moment of the audition, and we have no control over how it goes, and all we have is that moment. And it was a reminder to me, we talked about this in the past, a reminder to me about this art form, about what it is to be an actor, to get up there and to be vulnerable. That is not easy to do, right? We talk about vulnerability all the time, but actually being vulnerable is a difficult, difficult task. And this is what we ask of actors all the time. And so, again, I walked away from that experience with a great love for actors. Not just acting, but actors who get up and do this time and time again. Often it results in nothing.
And they and we are willing to put ourselves through that, knowing that it could very well, and most of the time, end in nothing.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't have it any other way. We wouldn't choose to do anything else. And I think it's noble. I think it's beautiful. And we're also, you know, you're asking them to do it and give that in a second. It's not like they can ramp up to it. They walk in, many meeting you for the first time, and then taking a beat and deliver.
Yeah, take your breath and go. Show me what you have, right? And they do it.
Yeah.
They do it.
I got to watch a little bit with you, and over the years, there's been times when I've been able to do that. Even in school, they had us sit through a mock audition one time just to show us how valuable that is. No matter where you are in your career, you always learn from observing and being able to be on the other side of it. I think it teaches a lot, you know, to be able to observe and see when it goes well, why? If it doesn't, why? Because we never stop learning. We're never done. Again, no matter who you are in your acting career. So, yeah, it feels like a very sacred thing to be able to watch.
And I think that's it. I think that's one of the things that hit me hard this time, is that it is sacred. It is difficult, difficult stuff to be an artist is a difficult thing, and to be a great artist requires a lot. There is a cost. A lot of people like to think that that's not a real thing. They're like, no, it's just, you're just a bunch of flaky people, right? But there is a cost to really giving yourself over to art, and not everybody can do that.
Yep.
So I was very moved by the experience of casting the seagull.
Beautiful. I love it. Something that I had posted was talking about my birthday, this being my birthday month, and how when birthdays come along, I get nostalgic and I get emotional. And I don't care about getting older. I feel like I like getting older. I like having new knowledge, caring less about what people think. It's not that makes me emotional. It's that the older I get, I realize how much of my life has already been lived. It puts me in a really interesting melancholy state to, I think about how finite time is, how another year is done, another year is gone, and I start thinking, what do I want for this year? What are my intentions? And what did I learn from the year that's now closed? And I start thinking about fears. What are my fears? And for a long time, I think I don't have any. I'm not scared of anything. But I realized my biggest fear is to regret. And as I get older and as I lose more time, I don't want to regret anything. And that seems scary to me. I want to know that I made the most of my time while I could, while I was young, that I squeezed the most I could possibly squeeze out of life, and to live just as fully as I can, which can be hard to do, especially when it's like you're a single mom and you have work and you have things to do. But it's like I'm aware that I want to have every human experience possible. I want to feel it all. And I have felt a lot of dark, but a lot of light. And I think, in the end, I wouldn't have it any other way.
I love that. I think there's this thing right now that's out there about cutting out all the negative out of your life, and and sometimes, of course, that's necessary. So I don't want to be too adamant about that, but I do think that we've gone overboard on that. I like what you said, that it's the darkness and the light. And often the darkness is the weight of the light. And you can't pretend that it wasn't there. You can't create some bubble for yourself. Not living with regret doesn't mean that you didn't learn from something, right? You can learn from things, you can change, you can become better, but not wallowing in regret, right? Looking at something. I don't know if we've talked about this before. I think you and I have personally. I don't think we've done it on here, but I love that sort of Thoreauvian idea of driving life into a corner and looking it in the eye, and that's what it is. And if it's mean, as he puts it, if it's dark, well then.
Yes.
What is that?
Yes, I love that so much. And I think just personally how I've always been, and I'm grateful that I had this in me, this is a quality about myself that I like, is that I would always rather try than not. And again, it comes back to not having regrets, not wanting to make a fear-based decision. I would always rather go, yeah, let me try. And if I fail, I fail. But you learn from it. You do. And I don't think you can learn as much other than going through the dark or having a failure.
Yeah, absolutely. You were talking about life, how much of it is lived, how much of it is gone. But that is also what makes it beautiful, right? It's the poet Mark Strand points this out, that it is the fact that it is finite and linear that makes it beautiful. The fact that we know it's going to be lost is the reason we value it.
Life is just a big series of goodbyes. We don't get to keep anything. We just have all of these little moments, and the only certain thing is that it's just flowing and it's moving, and phases are just phases. Nothing lasts. And it's beautiful and heartbreaking.
And that's kind of been a theme today, right? Jojo Rabbit. And in fact, isn't that what he brings up, right? He's this film where it's the silliness and the tragedy, and the Rilke poem that is a theme in the film, which is let everything happen to you, right?
Yep, agreed. Okay, should we go cry?
Let's do it.
Okay, find us on Facebook and Instagram. Let's go cry.
Thanks, folks.